Susie Orman, Robert Kiyosaki, David Ramsey. These are three people who make a living giving financial advice to people. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what they say you should do combined with my own personal experiences, things that I've done, and hopefully you can take all that advice and figure out your own plan for becoming financially free. So I'm going to tell you my own experience. When I started out investing, I was like everyone else. I bought real estate. I bought real estate for the same reason everybody buys real estate. It's the only investment they know. That's it. You make a heck of a lot less money than you would in the stock market. It's harder. You go into debt, and there's tons of headaches. It's not a liquid market. You have tenants to deal with, property management companies, a physical property to deal with, tons of things that can go wrong, all kinds of expenses, taxes, insurance, blah, blah, blah. Stock market, you don't have any of that. But it was all I knew. Plus, I was a real estate appraiser. I was in the real estate field for the majority of my post-military adult life. So I bought real estate. I invested in real estate, and yes, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Kiyosaki's famous book, which is a complete work of fiction, but a really good book. It does teach you the differences between making money and having your money work for you and make money for you. And I learned a lot, and I did have dreams of becoming somebody with lots of properties, managing those properties, and knowing exactly what I was going to bring in every month when it came to rent. And maybe as time went by, I would sell off a property and pocket the profit. Okay, now everything in my life changed when the market tanked. And for most real estate investors, their life changed too. So when the market tanked way back in the day, I sold off all my properties. I kind of had to. And at that point, I started thinking, okay, well, my dream or my image of the future here as having real estate sustain me is completely blown up now what I do. Let's learn about the market and let me see, is this something I can invest in? Now, I grew up in New York City, but I was always taught that the stock market is for rich people. I wasn't rich people. I was a homeless orphan living on the streets of Bronx, New York. I didn't know anything about anything. I was just trying to eat every day. So I started looking into the stock market. Now, like I said, I was a real estate appraiser. Almost all my friends are real estate people. So I started to make an effort to try and meet people who knew something about money and specifically in stocks, which I did. So I started meeting people in the stock market who were invested in the stock market. It was interesting because they sort of made it out like, look, real estate's for the masses. It's for the middle class. Wealthy people buy stocks. Wealthy people aren't out there buying townhouses. Okay, that's true. Now, like I said earlier, there are wealthy people like Bill Gates, Ted Turner, who buy big chunks of vacant land, but it's mostly for the tax benefits, not for the appreciation. Also, they buy farmland, which gives you the additional benefit of government subsidies, but that's for another video. So once I started learning about the stock market, I kind of got away from Kiyosaki. Like, oh, well, Kiyosaki, I don't know. I mean, being in debt, in the beginning when it was all I knew and, real estate was the way, it was like, yeah, great. I don't really care. I want to buy a house. Yes, I'm in debt, but I have equity. So if I needed to liquidate the house, I would actually be in profit, not in debt. Good. Profit good. Debt bad. But the stock market changed that. Okay, so at some point after the housing market collapsed, I started thinking about moving to the West Coast, changing basically my whole life. And I started to think, I don't want to be in debt. Just the idea of owing other people money or having a bill. And my new dream wasn't to acquire houses. My new dream was to buy one house and pay it off. Pay it off and be debt-free, completely debt-free, no mortgage. And I didn't have a car payment at the time. I only ever had one car payment in my life, the very first car I ever bought. After that, I would just save money until I had enough, and then I would buy a new car. So the only real debt I ever had was mortgages. I had credit card debt when I first got out of the military, but I worked pretty hard to pay that off, and I did. So now my new dream was, let's be debt-free. Let's work towards owning a home, paying it off, and having no debt at all, debt free. So now I sort of went from the Kiyosaki mindset to the Dave Ramsey mindset. Okay, now I completely skipped the Susie Orman mindset, which was just, cut your expenses, live within your means, because I've always been that way. I mean, I was a poor kid. When I had made $1, my first thought was, could I spend it on? My first thought was, how do I turn it into $2? So I kind of bypassed Susie Orman altogether. But now I like to say that I graduated from debt is good to debt is bad, the Dave Ramsey approach. So that's how I started living my life. And I did exactly what I just said. I bought a house, I paid it off in a relatively short amount of time, and I was completely debt free. Now what that did for me is it got me on the road to being financially independent. Because once I was completely debt free, all the money that I was making in my business went into the market. So I started out with not much. I mean, I paid off my house, but there was, not much sitting in my bank account after that. I had very little, but it was okay. My business was doing well. So disposable income at the end of the month went right into the market. ETFs. I bought exchange traded funds, and the money started growing. 12%, 15%, 18% a year. It started growing and growing. And basically that's how I eventually got to a point where I didn't need to work anymore. I still did for a few more years, and then some changes happened in my business, and I said, okay, I'm gonna go and do something else now. And I did. But the Kiyosaki method is really tailored towards people that see their future in real estate. Debt is good. There's a lot of people like that. I changed from that to the Dave Ramsey, debt is bad, man, debt is bad. I don't want to be in debt. And I'll say that between the two, I much prefer the way I am now. I don't like that, I don't want debt. I don't like the idea of owing money to anyone, of having any kind of payment. And let me tell you, when I paid off my mortgage, knowing that at the end of every month, now till the end of my life, I don't have any big bills. That was such a freeing, liberating moment. It was really more about freedom, maybe more than financial security. But people who love real estate, you're never going to have that. I guess it's a different feeling. I don't know. It's that idea of debt is good. Just remember, between those two schools of thinking, you really want to look at the long-term growth of your money. And you're almost always going to have a much bigger long-term growth prospect investing in the stock market versus real estate. The top real estate markets in the country might make 7% a year, but a tech fund will make 18% a year. The S&P itself, the very broad S&P, is going to make 12% a year. It's just people don't, really invest in those things because they don't know anything about it and they don't make an effort to learn. When I started out, I didn't either. Like I said, I started in real estate. That's all I knew. And then something happened. The market tanked. And then I started going online, started Googling how to invest in the stock market. What is the stock market? How do I get started? What should I invest in? How can I grow my money? What's the average rate of return of this, that, and the other? That's all I did. And eventually I got to a point where I could stop working. So whether you follow Susie Orman, Dave Ramsey, Robert Kiyosaki is up to you. Maybe you take pieces of what each of them say and put it into your own sort of prospects for the future. Some people like to have a piece of property, maybe 2 pieces of property, and then put the rest of their money in the stock market. Another good benefit of real estate is that it does fight against inflation. It's an asset that's anti-inflationary. Me personally, I just don't like having that sort of liability out there, knowing something could go wrong. In the future, if I travel, if I get involved in something, the last thing I want is an email or a phone call from my management company say, hey, we can't collect rent on your property anymore. The tenants become a liability, they're not paying, or the place got flooded, or I don't want any of that stuff. As I get older, I want life to be easier. I want to make more money doing less, and I want life to be easier and easier. I don't want to have these extra things that I need to think about. But there are a lot of people who are fine with that. So maybe a hybrid of a little bit of real estate and a little bit of the stock market is your thing. Maybe you favor one over the other, it's up to you. But you can take knowledge from all three of these people. They're all good. Susie Orman included. She gives you the basics of budgeting, thinking about money. Ramsey gives you the basics of debt and things to avoid, cutting expenses. And Kiyosaki's a little more highbrow just because he gets into real estate and refinancing and interest rates and that type of thing. So these are a couple different methods of how a regular person could invest and start moving towards financial freedom. Which one you prefer is up to you, but think about your future, formulate some kind of idea of where you want to go, and start investing in something. Invest in something to make that happen. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you next time.